Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. Today is our NBA segment as we're going to have Laker news in the LA Clippers team preview, So if you like the video today, please comment and share it. I'm the host, Vincent Turner. And joining me as always, the man. He's the #1 sports personality over at CVNnetwork.com. My man, Elias Pires. He knows all about college basketball and on the pro level. As I tell you before, and I'm going to tell you again, this young man had an offer to the University of Cincinnati back in the mid-90s. So this guy knows the game at the highest level. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it. As we're going to have our LA Lakers news, and then we're going to break down the LA Clippers team preview. So, Mr. Pires, I see that you're in a great mood today.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays, man. How many times do we get to do this and like Jeremiah was just saying, and get away with it? Wearing lights outside and funny hats. We can be whoever we want, man.
I'm not even going to say nothing, man.
What you want for Christmas, Vince?
I would say what's up with the lights, but hey, man.
What you want for Christmas, Vince? A tie?
What'd you say now?
What you want for Christmas? A tie?
Yes, sir. I like it. Since you're saying I need to wear a tie, I would surely appreciate it if you give me several collection of ties, since you think I need one.
Jeremiah, that in the budget?
Man, let's move on.
We're gonna find a place in the budget for this one. I'll tell you that right now, because there's nothing I like better than Vincent in a 3-piece suit on the set.
If you like the video today, please come in and share. That was our #1 producer, Mr. Jeremiah Daniel Long. So let's get right to the news. Let's start with the LA Lakers news, man. Marcus looked good last night in the preseason game. A young man, Taylor Horton Tucker, had 31 points against the LA Clippers last night in this Lakers victory, 122-106. Is he a young man that is going to get some playing time into the rotation?
Is he? He may even start. This kid has talent. I mean, let's look at him, right? Taylor Horton. What is it? Taylor Horton Tucker, right? He's legit. He could play point guard. He could score. He could facilitate the basketball. He has confidence. He has high IQ. But what I love about this kid, other than, of course, he signed with Clutch Sports and Rich Paul and all that, and LeBron James, I'm sure LeBron's happy right now. 46 pick in the NBA draft of 2019. He's an NBA champion before he turned 20 years old. The kid just turned 20 years old, Vince. November 25th. Wow. He's a Chicago kid from Simeon, what is it? Simeon Career Prep, right? Where the greats like Ben Wilson is gone, Vince. Nick Anderson, Kendrick Nunn at Miami went. Your boy Derrick Rose went. Jabari Parker, Bobby Simmons, and Lazarick Jones went there too, Vince. But what we saw from this kid the other day, the last 2 games against the Clippers, is phenomenal. It's growth. We saw it against Houston in the playoffs when he stepped into the game. We saw it in a few regular season games. And Jared Dudley's been telling us time and time again that this kid is good. But where this kid is great, it starts in practice. That's where it all started. Every Laker and everybody in that Lakers organization knew that this was coming. It was just a momentum. They were just waiting to get to these games. In these last 2 games, and I'll tell you what, you remember Giannis's rookie year? Or not, when Giannis rookie year. And with Reggie Evans had to ask somebody, who's this kid? And somebody told him he was 20 years old and he couldn't believe it. But guess what? Last night during the game, Kawhi Leonard asked Wesley Matthews, who's this kid? And he couldn't, and when Wesley told him that he was 20 years old, he couldn't believe it. You know why he did that? Because he snatched the ball away from Kawhi Leonard like Kawhi Leonard's never had that ball snatched away from him before.
Montrezl Harrell looked outstanding last night. Looked like a more, I want to say, active player playing with the Lakers. And I'm just looking down the road. Man, him in Atlanta with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It's just going to be something that's going to be very special. Talk about Montrezl Harrell's contribution with the Lakers this year in 2021.
I mean, Montrezl's going to give you what Montrezl gives you. He's going to be a high-energy guy. He's going to get up to play for the Clippers the way he left that team. And again, you know, everybody, we're going to get into the Clippers segment later. But Montrezl, of course, he's had 2 double-doubles in his first 2 preseason games. But what was great, Montrezl hit a 3-pointer last night, right? Montrezl was 0 for 18 behind the 3-point line. He had a mid-range jumper that you heard Kawhi Leonard say this is blew an explicit out because he's not known for that. The kid's been working. And what he's going to give you, he's going to be able to take your bigs out when Marc Gasol goes to the bench and you leave a big in the game, and he's going to be able to go right by that big and go to the hole for a monstrous dunk.
When you look at this Lakers team, how they got it constructed, you got LeBron James, you got Anthony Davis, you got Montrezl Harrell, you got an all-star center, Marc Gasol. In terms of talent, and I don't want to start nothing today here on Lakers News, but compare this team to the great Lakers teams of the past with Magic, James Worthy, Brian Scott, and Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. Is this team on the same talent level?
No, you can't compare. Let's not compare generations and decades of basketball. Nothing will ever be like that Lakers squad in the 80s. I don't care how bad we want it to be. They won 5 championships just against the Celtics, Philadelphia. You know, there was monsters in there. The game was different. Them guys was beating each other up going to the hole. What we call a flagrant today was just a hard foul back then. So let's not compare that. As far as what we see right now, this is a very good team, but we're gonna get outrageous if we start saying they're better than Shaq and Kobe and better than everything else. So let's just say this team, we still got to wait and see. They won 1 championship.
Can this team be a 3-peat?
Can this team be a 3-peat with THT? And if he's able to take that next step to that next level, and Schroeder and Montrezl and Harrell do what they're supposed to do. But again, what we saw from THT yesterday, and if he's going to step into that limelight and really become their stars, oh my God. I think yesterday the NBA got put on notice, and everybody in the NBA was looking at each other, and everybody was in their phones and on Twitter and texting each other like, oh my God, is this kid for real? Is this kid for real? Yeah, this kid's for real so far in 2 games.
Okay, let's talk about LeBron James' comments from last week. He made a comment saying that he's won 2 of the toughest NBA championships in Cleveland, with Cleveland being down 3-1 to Golden State, then the pandemic. He said both of them championships are some of the toughest championships won on the NBA level. What's your comments on that?
I mean, if you look at it as far as Cleveland, yeah, they was down 3-1 against Golden State. That's a great feat. Nobody gave them a chance to win that series. So I'll agree with that one. And as far as the pandemic and everything that's going on in that bubble, guys was well rested in that bubble. There was no going clubbing. There was no travel. There was no anything. There was no excuse. Just pick up your bags and let's go to the gym. So that was real basketball right there.
Okay, let's move over to the LA Clippers, the other team that they talk about in LA. They lost some pieces last year. They added some pieces. But what I've seen in the 2 preseason games, I've seen a team that's kind of maybe took a step back. Adding Luke Kennard, that doesn't look good to me. Maybe Serge Ibaka when he gets healthy and plays in the games. But I'm looking at the LA Clippers team that took a lot of step back. And then with a new coach also. Doc Rivers is not there, Tyronn Lue. Granted, he won a championship in Cleveland, but I'm not impressed. Talk about the Clippers overall.
I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but when you talk about the Clippers, all I can think about is what Kendrick Perkins said the other day when he said that they're softer than some hot Twinkies. Now, what I think he meant by that, because last year, let's remember something. The Clippers had their best chance to win an NBA championship last year when they was up 3-1 against Denver, and Denver came back But before that, against Dallas, if Porzingis didn't go out, Dallas had a good chance to win that series, and Dallas exposed the perimeter defense. But what my problem is with these Clippers, and if they're going to win a championship, is, first of all, who's the leader of the Clippers when you think of, like, every team has a leader. LeBron's the leader of the Lakers, right? Marcus Smart's the leader of the Celtics, right? But who's the leaders of the Clippers? Is it Kawhi Leonard or is it Paul George? I asked a couple Clippers, right? And it was different. I got a few different answers. I got Lou Will, I got Pat Bev, I got Marquise Morris, right? But nobody really said Kawhi or Paul George. Kawhi last year tried to call a few team meetings, right? But he's not that guy. It's never been him. And PG is always been. He's good with the media. The media loves him. He's been known to say some things that he shouldn't have been said, but he struggled last year with this team. So he hasn't earned their respect yet as far as being a teammate because he hasn't been there and he struggled a lot. So when you look at who's the leader of this team, that's where this team fails, if you ask me. I think the Serge Ibaka thing is an upgrade. I think he's going to be able to help, especially against the Lakers bigs and being able to stretch the floor. But what they really need is they need a leader. And what the Clippers are going to have to do, we see in the preseason game, they played 17 to 18 guys, right? So they're playing a lot of guys. They're trying to find something. What they're trying to find is a point guard because we know they tried to trade for Schroeder. We know they was interested in Bledsoe. They may look to trade for Lonzo Ball this year, Patty Mills. So it's Tyrell, and then you bring in a new coach, a whole different system. Because if you look at the Clippers the last couple seasons, outside the pick and roll, their offense has been stagnant. No disrespect to Doc Rivers, but Paul George may have hit that thing on the button when he said that there was no game adjustment. But right now, Paul George got to feel disrespected. Every time he looks up, somebody's talking about him and testing who he is, right? First of all, ESPN rated Zion Williamson higher than him, a guy that played 24 games last year, and put Paul George at 20 and put Zion at 19 off 24 games. Now that's disrespectful and it's asinine. So if I'm Paul George, I'm coming this year, and this year is business. I'm getting back to PG mature, really, because this is and then he signed that big contract extension. So what the Clippers are going to need this year, of course, they're going to need Terrence Mann to step up, a good kid from Boston, Massachusetts. Shameless plug right there. But if he could take that plunge and give him that point guard to come off the bench and help him out and score. But they're still going to need that point. They're going to need that trade. I'm seeing maybe Lonzo Ball. They're going to have to make a big trade. But Paul George is going to have to be PG mature this year. And Leonard looks big. Leonard's added about 10 pounds of mass. So that's telling me he's getting ready for something. And most likely that's war with the Lakers.
I'm going to say this about Paul George. I don't think Paul George, as I'm going to say, a top 10 player in the league, hasn't been right since he had that series when he broke his leg, a couple of years ago. I just don't think he's rebounded from that injury.
But he's 3 years away from being considered an MVP, man. But
I'm saying since the injury. And if you want to, I know you high on Paul George, seemingly, as like you are today.
I said MVP, not VIP. That's the most valuable player.
I get that, but he went over to Oklahoma with Russell Westbrook. He left Oklahoma City. He supposed to have been the guy, him and Russell Westbrook supposed to take Oklahoma City to another level in the West. That didn't happen. He comes to the Clippers with so much expectations last year. Let's be real. In the bubble, he struggled against Dallas. Then you saw what happened against Denver. They got eliminated.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking Paul George, not me. You put all the names out there today, ESPN, Stephen A. Smith. I don't mean to put him out there, but everybody was talking about Paul George was a top 5 player in the league. But now, after what happened in the bubble, that's not a consensus. And then the Clippers really made him a max player, gave him a deal. I don't know if I would have done that because when I look at it, you say Paul George, back in the day, 3 years removed from being an MVP, but to me, he hasn't been right since the injury. Then he went over to OKC. They didn't perform there. Then the Clippers came in as the team in the bubble to win it all. And you saw what happened. They struggled against the Mavericks and they struggled against the Nuggets, and the Nuggets eliminated them. Now, we just talk about leaders. You talking about leaders on the team, and you naming all these other players, but I didn't hear you name one in your conversation the last 5 minutes. You didn't mention nothing about Paul George being a leader, but he's the most max paid player on the team.
I never said he's a leader. Him or Leonard's never really taken that role. Paul George is who Paul George is. Paul George is a tough shot maker. He's a guy that shot 39% for three as a career, right? But only 16% of his shots have not been tough 3-pointers. So he's a tough shot maker. He's probably one of the smoothest players we've seen in the NBA. But as far as you talk, him being a leader, he's gonna have to step into that role. He's the leader when it comes to media and talking. But as far as being a leader, as far as his teammates, he has to earn that. And this year, that comes from getting in there, putting your hard hat on, coming hard in practice with these guys, and playing well. But it starts in practice for them. He's going to have to earn their respect right there on the court. They've heard the accolades, and you had to give him that extension. First of all, he committed to this team, and he said he wants to win in LA and win a championship for the Clippers. But let's be honest, this is the Clippers, right? It's not the Lakers. They've never had two big free agent signings like this at one time in bringing Leonard and George. So that's a big deal right there. And then they bring in Kennard, which I don't think is really that big of an upgrade. If you ask me, he's a decent, unless he's going to be that guy that scored 42 points in high school, he's not going to help this team because I'm going to give you a fact right now about Kennard. Who do you think they has the short, two guys in the NBA that have their arms are short compared to their wingspan? And that's Luke Kennard with the T-Rex arms and JJ Redick, right? Horrible defenders, right? Lou Williams, horrible defender, right? Terrence Mann, decent defender. Patrick Beverly, pesky defender, right? You getting my point on defense here?
I get your point, but I'm gonna bring up one more point once I can allow once you finish. Are you finished?
Yeah.
You got all around the point this morning. I asked you just said the leaders on the team. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, you just said in the team's history is their biggest free agent signings. So why are you talking about leaders when you should say those two guys right there are really the key to the Clippers overtaking the Lakers this year in the NBA West? That's the bottom line right there.
That has nothing to do with leadership, though, Ben.
How's it not way to do leadership, man? They're the two highest payers on the league. They came talking that smack last year when they signed that free agent money. They came and said they were the team of LA to take over. And they did not perform in the bubble. And to me, I'm sorry this morning on 100 yards.
Vince, who's the greatest power forward of all time?
Football with the basketball segment. But Paul George is overrated.
Who's the greatest power forward of all time?
Are you serious? Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman.
Dennis who?
Dennis Rodman. By way of Skyline High School, Dallas.
If we take a poll on that,
Detroit Pistons.
If we take a poll on that, you willing to color your hair like Dennis Rodman, saying some outrageous stuff like that?
You say who the best power forward in the history of the game, right?
Yes.
In my opinion, I would say Dennis Rodman 1 and then Kevin McHale 2.
All right. And since you said Dennis Rodman, right?
Yes, sir.
Whose face did you ever see Dennis Rodman and get into to be a leader? And then we could roll over to San Antonio and look at Tim Duncan. Whose face Tim Duncan ever get in on the team to be a leader, right? They led by the way they play basketball, right?
It's different ways you can
But that's what I was getting at.
Ways you can show leadership.
That's what I was just telling you. Paul George, Kai has all the Clippers respect, and they follow him, right? Off his work ethic and how he comes to play and how he practices. Paul George just got there and he was injured and didn't have a great season last year. But this year, if you look, both of these guys have played in the preseason and played 18 to 20 minutes. They don't have to, but they're doing that to build chemistry and camaraderie with their guys. So it started in practice. That's telling me these 2 games don't mean anything. We've seen THT go off. That's great. Maybe he'll have a great career. Maybe he'll become a superstar. But the Clippers right now have not shown the Lakers diddly squat, right? As far as their offense and what they're going to do.
Well, my question is, we're going to end it. My final question today on Lakers news and LA Clippers team preview. Then tell me this. I'm just going back when they signed in the summer of 2019, and they did a lot of talking, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. All I'm saying, that didn't happen in the bubble, baby. They underachieved. And they got a coach fired in Doc Rivers.
Vince,
in my opinion. So you just said about LA Clippers team preview said they needed leadership. The bottom line, if the Clippers, which I don't think they have a better team than the Lakers by no means, all I'm saying, if they're going to go to that next level, not Kawhi Leonard, because Kawhi Leonard has always been that type of player that's shown his leadership by his play. But Paul George, he is the guy basically on the fact he's got his money. And you and everybody else trying to put him in this category that what I'm seeing, he's a top 5 player in the league. No,
top 10.
Not right now. And that's all I'm saying. You have your final comments, sir.
I mean, let's look at the Clippers last year, right? They got cocky, they got arrogant, and they got humbled, right? When that happens, remember when you was a little kid, right? And Mr. Chester Turner had to humble you, right? You did something wrong, right? So he went to that tail and made you red in certain places, right? You was humbled. You came back, and your grades got better, right? You became a better man for that, right? And I think that's what the Clippers learned last year. Do I think they can compete with the Lakers? It's hard to tell right now, but it's early. I'm not going to say they can or they can't, but I can't say is they've been humbled. And we're going to see a different Clippers team this year. I guarantee you. And I hope and pray that they make that trade for a point guard, Patty Mills or Lonzo Ball, who I really think's coming back to LA, right? And what a great storyline, right? Lonzo Ball against the LA Lakers, right?
If you like the video today, please come and share it. Mr. Elias Pires, give the 100 Yards Football audience your contact information if they want to know more about the NBA.
Yeah, just hit me up on CVN Sports 1 on Twitter. And be happy to answer your questions. And if you want to send Vince a tie, just send me a picture of a tie on CVN Sports 1 on Twitter. And but Vince, we're not gonna talk about the Kyrie and LeBron situation. We're just gonna let that slide.
Okay, you wanna come on that right quick?
I mean, you had some comments to say. I want to know what you think of that.
We got
real quick.
Real quick, my thing with that is that Kyrie Irving. What was Cleveland's record for LeBron came back? They was in the dumps. There was a bottom of the league team in the East.
Mm-hmm.
He wins the championship with LeBron James. I don't have to say no more. What has Kyrie done since then? I don't have to say no more. He went to a very talented Boston team, and that didn't work out. Then he runs to Brooklyn now with Kevin Durant. Seemingly in the preseason, it seems like that Brooklyn's going to be a more upgrade. They might even be the team in the East. But all I'm saying is this. When you look at LeBron James, you look at Kyrie Irving comments about LeBron James, all I can say, Kyrie, and I'm saying here today, and I'm looking in the camera, 100 yards of football, where was you at before LeBron came back to Cleveland? And as we say from the 901, you was nowhere to be found. And I'm through with that. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it here on 100 Yards Football. And as I always end the show, I'm Vincent Turner, a.k.a. the baby boy. and the only son of Chester and Elias Turner from the 901, Memphis, Tennessee. Join us next week here with our Lakers news and our NBA team report. Thank you and have a wonderful week.
Kyrie better show respect.